My brother stole my share of the business, so I exposed his fraud on live TV with proof. We were 22 and broke when we started the company out of our father's rusted-out garage. I handled logistics, supplier deals, and the financial groundwork. He had the charm, shook hands, gave interviews, and smiled for photos, but behind every polished image he built was my relentless effort holding the structure together. I didn't mind staying behind the curtain. We were partners. Blood, after all, meant something, at least I thought it did. The first 3 years were chaos. Missed payments, sleeping under our desks, eating out of vending machines just to save cash. I remember arguing over a single box of faulty parts, both of us nearly tearing the thing apart in frustration. But we pushed through. Eventually, the orders grew larger and investors started calling. Clients from out of state, then overseas. I thought we'd made it. We even shook on it 50-50, always. It wasn't until our 5th year, right after we landed that big government contract, that I noticed something off. A notification from the bank showed changes in our business account access. My name wasn't listed as co-signer anymore. I figured it was a system issue. Then I checked the LLC filing. My name? Gone. No signature, no mention, not even a record in the member ledger. I was erased, neatly, surgically, like I never existed on paper. He played it cool when I confronted him, looked up from his phone with a fake laugh and said, "Clerical mix-up. I'll get it fixed." But I saw it in his eyes. There was no fixing coming. The next day, I went back to the filing office myself. What I found was worse than I imagined. My signature was on the amended documents, signed and dated 3 months prior. Except I never touched those papers. The accountant we trusted, the same guy we took out to dinner after every quarterly review, had been paid off. I found encrypted payments from our corporate account going into a shell company registered under the accountant's brother-in-law's name. The handwriting on the forms didn't even match mine. I started digging hard. I pulled every document I had access to, downloaded emails, cross-referenced timestamps. I spent 3 weeks sleeping 3 hours a night, scanning invoices, comparing scans of contracts, highlighting inconsistencies line by line. I backed up every file in triplicate, stored copies on drives I didn't even keep in my house. Then I got lucky. One of his old college buddies came over to our office one night, drunk on pride and arrogance. They didn't realize the conference room camera was still running. The audio was rough, but clear enough. My brother laughed, said the words himself. He'll never see it coming. I had the accountant forge it all. It's done. That was all I needed. The evidence was airtight. I knew calling the cops wouldn't be enough. A court battle could be dragged out for years. He'd still walk around pretending he built it all alone. So I waited. I kept it quiet. Watched his interviews, saw the magazine covers, the speaking gigs, the awards ceremonies. I waited until his next big spotlight, a live interview on a morning TV show, the one with millions of viewers tuning in over breakfast. 2 weeks before the appearance, I contacted the show's producer directly. Sent them everything, documents, recordings, bank statements, even the footage from the conference room. I gave them one condition: do not cut to commercial once the reveal starts. They agreed. I made sure of it, called back 3 separate times to confirm. The morning of the interview, he sat in the studio in his press suit, grinning like a man who thought the world was beneath him, talking about our humble beginnings, how the family came together to build a dream, lies rolling out of his mouth with ease. But right before the break, the host leaned forward, resting her hand on the desk like something serious was coming. She turned slightly toward the camera and said, "Before we continue, there's something our viewers need to see." He stiffened. I saw it, just the smallest twitch in his jaw. The screen behind them lit up. First came the emails. Then the forged contracts, shown side by side with real ones. Then the audio clip, his voice, laughing, bragging. You could hear the audience in the studio shift, their silence louder than any shout. He stared at the monitor like he was seeing a ghost wear his own skin. No excuses. No spin. Just exposure. His lips moved, but no sound came. The host didn't give him time to speak. The segment closed with a final line, "More updates after the break." For now, what you've seen speaks for itself. The network never aired his segment again. Sponsors started pulling out that afternoon. Calls stopped coming in. The fallout wasn't slow, it was immediate. By the time the interview clip finished airing on national television, his phone had already started blowing up. Sponsors, journalists, board members, even his so-called friends, everyone wanted answers, but none of them got any. He vanished from the spotlight within 24 hours, retreating behind the glass walls of that overpriced penthouse he used to brag about, probably thinking silence would bury the truth. It wouldn't. I didn't go home after the broadcast. Instead, I went straight to the old office, the one we shared before everything changed. It was mostly empty now, stripped of warmth, the furniture sterile and new. Still, I sat in what used to be my chair, opened my laptop, and began putting together the next phase. Taking down a man like him on live TV was just the first step. The deeper damage hadn't even begun yet. See, people think reputation is the foundation. It's not. It's a mask. The real foundation is trust, contracts, legal partnerships, shareholder agreements. Once that mask breaks, trust evaporates. And when it goes, everything under it collapses. I made sure of it. 3 months before I exposed him, I started reaching out quietly to our biggest clients. I didn't tell them everything, not yet. I just planted seeds, raised questions about delivery discrepancies, pointed out missed deadlines, subtle flaws in product quality. It wasn't hard. Once he got comfortable in his stolen role, the work suffered. I only needed to shine a light on the cracks already spreading. The government contract, the crown jewel of our company, had strict compliance clauses. One breach, and they could pull funding, even demand repayment with penalties. I forwarded a series of late shipment reports and product failure data to the liaison in charge. Attached were screenshots showing that I had flagged the problems internally and that he'd ignored them. That contract was worth millions. It was the first thing to go. Within 5 days of the live reveal, our largest 3 accounts froze their operations. Publicly, they called it routine reassessment. Internally, they'd seen the footage. They knew he wasn't the man he claimed to be. He tried damage control, held a press conference, brought in a PR consultant, even faked a health scare, but no one bought it. The media didn't care about the spin. They only wanted more fire. Then the lawsuits started rolling in. A former supplier filed first, claiming breach of payment terms and fraudulent reassurances. Then a partner company accused him of falsifying inventory numbers. And finally, the accountant, the one who took his bribe, flipped. He came forward with a sworn affidavit, emails, transaction logs, and most damning of all, a video confession. He admitted everything, even showed the envelope of cash my brother gave him. Said he was promised protection, shares, and immunity. Said he trusted him. Mistake. I forwarded the statement to every lawyer connected to our company, including the ones representing the shareholders. Within a week, they demanded a full audit. His assets were frozen temporarily, pending review. The board held an emergency vote to remove him from his executive role. They didn't even call him in, just sent a letter and changed the locks. He tried calling me. First it was a casual text, "We need to talk." Then came the calls. I let them ring out. A day later, he left a voicemail, tone cracked with tension, not apology. Said I'd gone too far, that I was destroying what we built. No acknowledgement of what he did. Just anger that I didn't let him get away with it. But what he didn't understand still was that this wasn't about revenge. This was about balance. He stole my name, my work, my place, and replaced me with a version of himself that wasn't real. All I did was restore what should have never been taken. 2 weeks later, I walked back into the boardroom for the first time in over a year. Same long table, same windows overlooking the city skyline. Only now, the chairs were filled with people who actually looked at me. Not past me, not through me, at me. I laid out my case in one meeting. Clear, documented, unshakable. I presented a proposal to restructure the leadership. I wouldn't take him down just to wear his crown. I wanted what I built on my terms. They agreed. The company was split. The name remained, but half of the original branches, specifically the logistics and operations wing, the one I built, were separated and placed under my management. We rebranded within 30 days. Clean slate. My team. My rules. I didn't hire any of his old inner circle. I brought in people who remembered the early days, the engineers who stayed up troubleshooting at 2 in the morning, the delivery drivers who worked overtime unpaid just because they believed in the mission. Meanwhile, he tried to sue. Filed a case claiming I defamed him, claiming the documents were fabricated, the footage altered. It didn't stick. Every point I raised had been reviewed, verified, sealed in official transcripts, and authenticated by third-party firms. His case was thrown out. The judge even reprimanded his attorney for wasting the court's time. Public support didn't swing back in his favor. In fact, it got worse. News outlets kept digging. One report linked him to fake charities he used for tax write-offs. Another uncovered inflated sales numbers filed during the fiscal year we were trying to land investors. His name became synonymous with deception, not just in business, but personally. Old friends started speaking up. Former employees came forward about manipulation, intimidation, withheld bonuses, NDAs they were pressured into signing. I didn't speak to the press. Not once. Every time they asked for a quote, I declined. I wanted the truth to speak alone, without a face pushing a narrative. He'd built his empire with a spotlight. I wanted to build mine with substance. A few months in, I got an email from a journalist who'd followed the story since the beginning. She said she was writing a book, not about him, but about whistleblowers and how betrayal within families could reshape industries. She asked for a private meeting. I didn't respond right away. Took a week to think it over. Then I said yes, under one condition. She didn't ask about our childhood. This wasn't a story about where we came from. It was about what choices were made once we had power. The meeting happened in a quiet coffee shop downtown. No cameras. Just a voice recorder and a notebook. I told her everything from the first moment I noticed my name missing to the second the audience watched him fall silent live on air. She listened. Asked the right questions. Never interrupted. When I finished, she thanked me, closed her notebook, and said one thing I didn't expect. You never hated him, did you? I didn't answer, because she was right. I didn't hate him, but I didn't trust him, and that mattered more. That night, I went back to my office. The new place, smaller, but built from the ground up again. I opened my drawer and pulled out the last printed copy of the original partnership agreement, before the forgery, before the greed. My name was still on it. My real signature. Proof that, at one point, we had been equals. I didn't keep it as a keepsake. I kept it as a reminder. The cost of trust is everything once it's broken. I received a letter the following week. From him. Not emailed. Not typed. Handwritten. Probably for legal reasons, but the tone was off. The letter was short. He said he lost everything: his position, the investors, the condo, even the house we grew up in. He said the only thing he had left was the regret of not doing it the right way. He didn't ask for forgiveness. Didn't ask to rebuild anything. He just wrote one line that stuck with me. If I could go back, I would have taken the smaller share and kept my brother. I folded the paper and locked it away without replying, because even now I knew the truth. He didn't want a brother. He wanted the crown without the climb. And now he had neither. The business is running smoother than ever. Our client base trusts us again. Every decision goes through clean systems. We've implemented third-party audits, external compliance teams, and transparent reporting dashboards. I kept my circle tight, trusted few, and earned my place without shortcuts. But I still carry the footage. Still have the files. 6 months passed. Not long in the scheme of things, but enough to rebuild the foundation under my feet. My company, now officially operating under a new name, had stabilized. We weren't flashy, but we were consistent. Clients returned because they trusted the systems, not the story. No gimmicks, no public stunts, just results. I had an office that felt like mine, a team that knew what loyalty looked like, and a name that no longer needed correcting. But the past doesn't vanish. It lingers, not as a weight, but as a shadow, reminding you of the paths you won't walk again. The emails had quieted. The media lost interest. But then came the subpoena. It was tied to a federal investigation. Apparently, what started with a forged signature opened the door to deeper fraud, tax evasion, misappropriation of grants, false expense filings. Authorities had pieced together a network of financial misconduct, most of which happened while he controlled the company solo. The paperwork trail led directly to him. The investigators wanted my testimony. Not opinions, just facts. They already had the documents I sent to the news network. Now they needed me to walk them through it in person. I agreed. I didn't do it for revenge. I did it because if you start something, you finish it. The hearing took place behind closed doors. It wasn't televised. No cameras, no microphones. Just lawyers, agents, and silence so heavy you could feel it pressing on your spine. I sat across from 3 officials and explained everything from the moment I saw my name missing to the night I watched the company fracture from the inside out. They asked questions, but they didn't dig for drama. They already knew the story. They were just filling in the last blanks. A month later, he was indicted. The charges weren't just about what he did to me, they went further. The forged tax filings alone carried real consequences. What he thought would remain hidden behind complicated corporate structures had been exposed piece by piece, mostly because he got too comfortable thinking no one would challenge him. And when the plea deal was offered, he took it. He avoided prison, but not without consequences. He paid heavy fines, lost his right to serve on any corporate board, and was barred from owning another business for 10 years. The court order also required him to formally return any assets connected to the fraudulent filings. That included the last 30% share in a regional distribution hub I hadn't even known he retained under a shell company. I took ownership without a word exchanged. Legally, it was mine. Symbolically, it was the final piece. I saw him once after that, unexpectedly, at a mutual acquaintance's funeral. We hadn't spoken in almost a year. He looked thinner, not in a tragic way, but in that quiet, humbled kind of way life gives people when they've run out of distractions. He didn't approach me until the service ended. Even then, he walked slow, cautious, like he knew nothing he said could undo what had happened. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said, hands in his pockets, voice low. "She was a good person," I replied. He nodded. We stood there, no words, just the hum of people behind us making small talk and awkward exits. Then he spoke again. "You did what you had to do." It wasn't an apology, and I didn't need one. I didn't respond. He didn't ask how the business was doing. Didn't ask how I'd managed to fix everything he broke. He knew. Everyone did. "I lost everything," he added. "That wasn't me," I said, calmly. "You did that on your own." He gave a slight nod, then walked away without saying goodbye. No handshakes. No attempts at reconciliation. Just a quiet exit, fitting for someone who once believed the world couldn't touch him. After that, I never saw him again. Years passed. The company grew, not overnight, but steadily. I opened 2 more regional offices, expanded the logistics platform, integrated tracking systems that made the entire operation smoother. I invested in smaller startups, giving others what I never got: support without strings. I didn't put my name on everything. I didn't need to. The work spoke for itself. One day, I found myself standing in front of a group of college students. A professor had asked me to speak about building a business from the ground up. I walked them through the basics: supply chain decisions, vendor contracts, risk management. Toward the end, one of the students asked a question I'd heard before. "What's the hardest part about running a company?" I thought about it for a moment. "Trusting the wrong person," I said. "And knowing when not to let that stop you." I didn't mention him. I didn't need to. Afterward, the professor thanked me. Said it was rare to hear a business story without the fluff. I told him there was nothing fluffy about being erased from your own work and having to claw it back piece by piece. Business isn't about vision boards or perfect pitches. It's about staying awake while the person sitting next to you is writing you out of your own story.